What's up, y'all? Rich Slayton here with a breakdown of Misfits Gaming huge win in CRL West to clinch first place in their group and a first round bye. Before I introduce our guests, just make sure you go subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for notifications, do all the important things, share this with people who like Clash Royale, people who don't like Clash Royale. Just tell people about these videos because I'm sure that you want to see more of them and I want to bring you more cool stuff. So, with that out of the way and no further ado, the 2v2 duo of Misfits is on voice. Trainer Dip and Razzer. Guys, welcome. I'm really glad to have you here, and congrats on securing first place in the group.
Thanks, Rich. I love talking about Clash Royale, so I'm glad I was finally able to come on and talk about it.
Sweet. I want to just waste no time and get right into breaking down the action. So first, let's take a look at the deck you guys ran in game number 1. This is the matchup of your first game for Space Station. Let's talk a little bit about the overall 2v2 plan for approaching Space Station. When you're looking to game plan for AC and RF, what are the primary principles that you guys have built into that game plan?
Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, against them, they can use anything for the most part. They're just like a really good duo. So we were just trying to find the most solid decks that we could and just practice as much as we could just to try to be as solid against every matchup.
Well, go ahead.
And then also be ready for RG because they run like a lot.
Well, speaking of RG, you guys went with this in the first game. Why did you guys choose this against Space Station? Also, keep in mind, reminding everyone that the bans this time around were Tornado for you guys, and then they banned Skeleton Barrel. Did that surprise you at all?
It was a little surprising to see the Skeleton Barrel ban. It didn't really affect. So we basically came up with a bunch of decks, and for like different bans, and there's no ban that could really take away everything, we felt. So it was a little surprising, but it didn't really affect our game plan, I feel.
So why this Royal Giant deck? Obviously, it's a variation on the really popular Royal Giant cycle deck that's been in 1v1 for a while. But you guys, of course, put in some other pieces here with a Lumberjack and the Giant Skeleton. What was it about this deck that you liked against Space Station?
Well, I feel like in general, just Lumberjack and RG are both in 2v2. They're just necessities, I think. And we made this deck like last meta when the RG Firecracker deck first started being used, and then we've just been using it ever since. And we've just been waiting for the right moment to use it, and we just felt like it was a solid enough deck to use against them. We had like 2 months of practice with it.
Yeah, and that's something that you mentioned to me, Dip, privately, was you said this is what it looks like when we have 2 weeks to prepare. This was coming off your bye week. How valuable was that extra week of preparation coming into a matchup like this one?
It was super nice to have, extra time to just practice different matchups, extra time to come up with different decks. I mean, it's just a nice thing to have, I guess. And it's like a little less pressure on us because we have just so much time.
Sure. And by the way, if you guys see a moment while we're watching these replays that you want to dig in, that you think there's something, an insight that's really valuable for our viewers, please let me know and stop it. We can easily rewind and go frame by frame through a lot of these videos. One thing that was interesting about this one was the Firecracker seemed like it gave them a lot of trouble, and in 2v2, obviously with so many spells, typically it seems like you're not as worried about Firecracker matchup-wise, but it seemed like this one, even with all the spells they had, Firecracker was a big nuisance.
Yeah, they had a really slow cycle as well as only one small spell. It was a very heavy deck. I'm not sure what they were expecting from us, but their super heavy deck with only one small spell versus our super cycle deck with 2 Firecrackers they just got overwhelmed. Every single time they dropped a spell to kill our Firecracker, we would get 1 or 2 more down.
So it's interesting that, so you'd say that the cycle was a major part of why this worked out so well, because you see the pieces they have in their deck, right? They have a few different ways to chunk down the Royal Giant. They have ways to kind of like to stun a little bit the bridge battle, but it just seemed like they couldn't keep up with you.
Yeah. The main thing is we have basically 3 answers to the Ram Riders. We have Cage, we have Log, and we have Royal Delivery. And we have just such a fast cycle that they can never like catch us off guard. And then, yeah, like we were saying earlier, they cannot kill Firecrackers because Lightning is just not value, and Log doesn't kill a Firecracker. and then their only answer is poison. But they can only usually poison one because we spread out very nicely. And even if they poison it, we're just back to another.
Yeah, and then here you see 2 firecrackers down. They can't get them off the board. Even the first muskie shot doesn't do it. Was protecting those firecrackers something that you were even really thinking about or concerned with, or did you feel like the way that the matchup was overall, you didn't actually have to focus on it very much?
No, we were just kind of just playing them low and just keeping everything at the bridge, because with our giant skeleton and delivery, like, stuff really never even got to our tower. Honestly, like, I could pretty safely say that this was just a straight up hard counter from us.
Which, it's interesting. I want to talk to you a little about that, because in 2v2, it seems that overall the matchup swing in 2v2 has generally been considered to be less than in head-to-head, where in head-to-head you have some matchups where at the pro level it's basically 100-0, barring someone having a brain aneurysm. But it seems like this season the 2v2 matchup difference has grown a little bit. Do you guys have that same perspective? Does it seem like it's the same 2v2 it was in previous seasons?
I kind of agree, but I think it's more that people have all risen to a higher level of gameplay, so it matters a little more. So I think that's why matchups look a little bit more, because everyone has gotten to a level where they know how to play 2v2 somewhat. I mean, some people are still better than others, but I think everyone just came to the same level, and now it looks a little more even, and what's different in the matches is just decks, basically.
So a question from Loki in the chat asking, Razzer and Dip, when you count opponents' elixir, are you counting only in single, or are you still trying to keep track in double elixir as well?
Mainly in single, but double a little bit. We'll know if we're. It's I don't know if you know what counting cards in poker is like, but you don't know specific elixir. You know, sure, I'm up a lot or down a lot, that kind of thing. Sure. Is how I do it in double.
Yeah,
I don't know
single,
how George does it.
Yeah, well, single is. I honestly, I just listen to you, but Razzer's the big brain. He's the one who counts everything. In single, singles where you have to be super alert on elixir, because you get elixir slower, so you have to just always be so aware of how much you have and how much they have.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely elixir management in 2v2 seems like, and that's a good point you made, Razzer, earlier about people have caught up to being good 2v2 players, where for a long time it felt like maybe some players weren't as comfortable with that slower elixir flow in 2v2. And it's been talked about a lot, Razzer, how you and Colton kind of got ahead of the game in 2v2, meeting months before the inaugural season of CRL West, and kind of. I'm curious about the process of what were the first things that you had noticed when you were developing yourselves as 2v2 players that you think were things that the rest of the CRL field needed time to catch up to?
So months ahead of the very first CRL, we got together, and the first thing we did was just try to come up with a bunch of different decks. So we would just do deck creation, and then we'd figure out, we need to switch who has what small spell. We need to switch who has what defense to make the cycles better. And something really important that you need to know is slow. You need to have some slow cards in your deck, which is something you don't really think about. But if you have, say, Ewiz, Baby Dragon, all cards that run forward very fast, it's hard to build a push in 2v2. So you need a good mixture of cards. And that was really what we were just trying to find out, is having a good mixture of cards and who should have what spell, who should have the defense, that sort of thing. And I think that was just a huge advantage over everyone else.
So let's talk about this deck for a minute, and then we'll move on to our second game. When you're building the deck we're looking at right now on the left-hand side, right? What went into deciding who had what? Why did you have Earthquake and the Royal Delivery versus Dip having Fireball and Log?
So originally we did have the spell swapped, actually, but the problem was in Dip or George's hand, it was awkward to cycle because it's hard. You can't cycle just Earthquake and Delivery just outright, and so his hands were a little awkward. He couldn't cycle anything in the back, and I actually have a faster cycle with the Heal Spirit Skeletons and Bats, and so we thought that would be better for me to have the Delivery, because Delivery is just so good on defense. so I can cycle more of them. And log is nice because you can always just throw it out, so that helped his cycle. So it kind of just solved two problems with one.
Yeah, that's such and this is the kind of thing that why I wanted to have the two of you on together, just really talking about these little details of 2v2. And I've said it before that I might be the biggest 2v2 fan in the game. And I'm happy that it's in CRL West and little things like that. Patrick asked in the chat, you guys count Elixir in 2v2? And I guess the answer was, you might have missed it a moment ago, was yes, to a certain degree, more of a feel of Elixir. But remember, keep in mind, Patrick, that Elixir does go more slowly in 2v2. Dark Enchilada asks Razzer, how does it feel being, right now, the winningest 2v2 player ever?
I mean, it feels really good. I don't know what to say.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into game number 2 here in just a moment. And first, let me go ahead and queue up the deck for that one so we can take a look at it. Here we go. This is the deck selection for game number 2. And you guys switched over to a really interesting double giant Night Witch construction. We've seen giant a little bit in 2v2. We've seen giant quadruple prince. We've seen giant tank for graveyard a little bit. But this seemed like a kind of, I don't know if I've actually seen this giant deck yet in 2v2 in CRL West. What was the inspiration for building this one?
Our inspiration was Wings, the giant god. He kind of made this deck. We only practice against Airsurfer and Wings. We won't play with any other teams because we don't want to have any of our decks like get out there whatsoever. So they sometimes make some new decks, and there's they were using this a bunch against us, and they were winning it with a bunch. They were winning a lot with it. So we asked them like, what's the best way to use it, and blah blah blah. And yeah, they told us the best ways to use it. We used it against them. Then we started winning a bunch, and yeah, we just figured out that we just made a deck that happened to be pretty good.
Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this actual game here. We'll jump in to game number 2. You guys are up 1. Were you planning on definitely using this in game 2 no matter what, or was this a decision because you were up 1?
Full on game 2 deck.
Game 2 deck. For like almost any ban, we wanted to run this game 2 because we felt it was so solid, basically.
Yeah, unless they banned Giant, we were using this.
So one of the interesting things in here, and you'll see this over in your hand dip, is the Rage spell. And Andrew and I have talked about this a bit after seeing Rage being used more in 2v2 in CRL Asia and CRL China before the merger into East. This is over the Eastern side last year. It didn't really get into the Western meta until this season. And I'm kind of curious about your thoughts on Rage. Obviously, you guys ran it. Why wasn't it in the Western meta beforehand, and what do you like about it now?
I think in the past, West people, they've ran like super heavy decks or just like minor control decks, and it kind of really stuck or graveyard. And those decks, people didn't, in the big beatdown decks, no one really fit Rage in, and then the other decks just didn't fit in. But just since West kind of, I think they started 2v2s a bit before us, or East, I mean. And they had more time to develop their meta. Like now that we're getting more time with 2v2 like they did, now we're starting to like fully figure out how 2v2 is and what works best.
Yeah. Also, like on top of that, it's kind of hard sometimes to fit Rage into a deck. Like you're just not sure what to take out, and I feel like a lot of West players were also just like, why would we put in Rage when we can put in Lumberjack? Which Lumberjack can like do a lot of damage and then provide the Rage spell. So I think it was just like hard to do, and like Lumberjack was a better option for most people.
I'm taking you can see I'm taking it back a little bit. I want to talk about this opening here because you guys took a big hit in the opening. And it felt like Space Station was going to take this one. Talk me through this opening minute or so and what happened. What happened to your guys' push? What happened defensively? Why did they get this big lead early on?
I think our big problem is we didn't have any big spells in hand. So we have Fireball and Poison, and we had neither of them. So we couldn't kill the E-Wiz. And then on this push, I had a really bad Mini P.E.K.K.A. So the Mini P.E.K.K.A. was just getting hit by everything. We Heal Spirited to save it somewhat, but that was a really big misplay, I think, is what went wrong there.
So you're seeing the E-Wiz and the Firecracker both on the Mini P.E.K.K.A. So taking that back, what would you do differently? I mean, obviously you guys had a bad starting hand, as you mentioned. What should you have done with the mini P.E.K.K.A in this moment? Or should you have played something different?
I think I needed to wait and try to play it on the left side to get the E-Wiz, and then have it go to the Royal Giant. But I was just trying to DPS the RG down, and yeah, that was not a good play by me.
Because also since you put it on the right, the firecracker, like since the range was so big, it ran back from the other lane to shoot it.
Yeah,
that was the big thing.
Yeah, mini P.E.K.K.A gets busted out, and you can see a little cry emoji or cry emote coming from the peanut gallery there on the side. So what are you guys talking about right now? What's the discussion the two of you are having just given up 1500 HP on the left-hand side?
We just stayed calm. We honestly, whenever any mistakes happen in 2v2, the best thing to do is just ignore it. Like, ignore it until the game's over. Just don't dwell on it. Just continue on with the game. We just kept trying to build pushes, just put up pressure so they couldn't pressure us, and it ended up working out.
Also, a big thing was pushing opposite of them. Like, because we don't want them to get a counter push in the weak lane so they can just finish it off.
Sure.
So we wanted to keep the pressure in the other lane so they didn't get a counter push over there.
And here they go ahead and they drop this Royal Giant on the left-hand side as you guys giant up. And this defense goes fairly well. I think the RG gets one shot. Yeah, he only gets one shot here. Do you think that they got a little over-aggressive there at that point?
A little, yeah, because we're able to kind of build a pretty nice push here. And it, like, usually you don't want an RG by itself, because then, yeah, we do get a nice little counter push over there that they had to kind of spend a little to defend.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in the replays for 2v2 don't include the elixir. I'd love to be able to actually look at the elixir count right now, but that's only when you watch it live, not when you watch it on a recorded replay, like I've done here. So now you guys are still building on this side. You're poisoning off the firecracker and getting that's a lot of value there. You get the firecracker skeletons. The heal spirit goes all the way through the poison. I was a little surprised about that one. And let's back this one up just a little bit. Why did you guys decide at this moment to go in both lanes, right? You have this going down the right-hand lane. What's behind the decision to start the giant push in the left-hand lane as well?
Well, we had so many troops on the board already in that one lane, as well as they played a giant skeleton over there. So anything else we dropped into that lane would just be dead. So with this deck, it's really good to, if you're able to get a big push in one lane and you still have elixir because they're not counter pushing, then you can just drop stuff in both lanes, rage it, and it's really hard to defend both lanes. Yeah,
let's talk a little bit about the... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, like, they defended really well, though. I can honestly, like, I talked to them after the game, RF and AC, and they got pretty unlucky with the like, they could have logged, if they logged like a half second earlier, they would have just won the game.
Is that because of the heal spirit that we see? Yeah, this heal spirit drops right up there. You see it at the bridge. Its clock is on, and so that's what you're saying is if that heal spirit doesn't come through, that they end up winning the game.
100%.
Yeah, heal spirit goes all the way through, and it gets the mini P.E.K.K.A as well. So mini P.E.K.K.A gets some free pancakes on the left-hand side. And at this point, you guys feel like you had the game pretty well in hand?
We were still nervous.
We were still not sure. I knew we were up in elixir, that's why I said giant at the bridge. But we knew we had to get some sort of damage. Like, spells weren't going to quite be enough. So we were still pretty unsure. We thought we needed to keep up a lot of pressure here.
So Fireball does get through. They have a Lumberjack on the Giant, and it's just not getting it down fast enough. Now you have spells down. And if I remember correctly, it's been 48 hours since the match. I feel like this ended up being very close. Oh, yeah. The double RG drop here. You guys rage up. I want to go back here. You guys rage up on defense.
Defense, yeah. That actually saved us the game.
Okay, talk to me about that a little bit.
George rage here.
Yeah, well, I just... It helped me cycle as well as Raged Mini P.E.K.K.A, Brawler, Dark Prince. Like, I don't think anything's going to kill 2 RGs faster than raging up those cards. So it's a cheap card that helps you cycle because I was trying to get back to my Fireball. And, yeah.
So let's talk about this final moment here a little bit because, we didn't know if this was a cycle problem or what happened with Space Station, but you see they get 2 RGs down. They get a little bit of damage here. And that log, I believe... Oh, no, it does actually get chip here. And this comes down to the wire. They are just a few elixir away from being able to get the tower down. You said you talked to them a little bit afterwards. What happened from their perspective in these final moments? Did you guys talk about that at all?
George?
Wait, sorry. Like, you guys say that again. I'll talk to my brother.
No worries. I'm looking at this final sequence, right, where they end up. There's 209 on your tower, and they only have enough elixir for a fireball. You said you spoke with AC and RF a little bit afterwards. Did they have any give you any insight as to what was happening in these final seconds? Because I mean, this did come down pretty close.
Those final seconds, it was just them trying to throw everything they had. It's either they took it or they didn't, and they just didn't have enough. Nothing they really could have changed.
So the double RG push at the end doesn't work again. And so let's take a look one more time at the deck that you guys ran. We're talking about matchup in game number 1. What do you think about this matchup in game number 2? Do you feel like this was also a pretty solid one in your direction?
I think this game, it kind of, Inferno Towers was annoying at times, but if we didn't have that rough start, I think it would have just been a back and forth game, and whoever played better would have won.
So here are some questions. Oh, go ahead, Raz.
Oh, no.
Oh, so here are some questions from the chat for you guys. Loki asks, what do you think about playing 2v2 with the two same decks? With your decks being, I guess Loki's asking, you guys both have the exact same 8-card hand. I know a lot of people end up doing that. Not at this level. I'll let you guys field the question because you're the experts. Why is it important to have at least some variety between the two decks as opposed to two completely mirrored decks, mirrored hands?
It's just nice to have different things. So, you don't want to have double fireball because, if you play against graveyard, you don't have a poison for graveyard. So it's nice to have one fireball, one poison. It's nice to have, one zap to reset Inferno Towers and one log to kill Goblin Barrels. It's just finding a nice happy medium of good defense for more things. So if you have double fireball, obviously it's better against Royal Hogs because then you can just fireball every time you see a Royal Hogs. But if you play against graveyard, it's not good. So it's good to have both basically.
Sure. A question from Cool Quartz who asks, if Heal Spirit had, let's say, 10% less heal, would you have still used it in these decks?
In this matchup specifically, Heal Spirit is quite nice for the double Night Witch. It's hard to say. I'm more of a visual person, so I would need to play test it and see how much it would affect things. But probably it wouldn't be as good, but maybe we'd still use it.
Patrick asks, why does 2v2 always double up the same win condition as opposed to two different ones? This is actually a really great question. It does seem like most 2v2 decks double up from a win condition perspective. Why is that?
I've actually thought about this before. I've thought about creating a new 2v2 deck and having maybe one person is giant and one person is hog. I've thought about that. Honestly, never tried it. Could be interesting to try, but I think at the moment most people haven't tried it because the first win condition kind of baits out their counters for that win condition, and then you double up with the second win condition, hopefully after they use their counter for it. Because if you have two different win conditions, they might have two separate counters for those two separate win conditions when they might only have one for the same one, so then if you have two, it makes it harder to defend.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually, that the two win, and it's not like double graveyard, for example. It's hard to defend a graveyard and then have more counters to pick up a second graveyard that comes down when that one starts to phase off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great question from, I believe that was Patrick who asked that, and an excellent answer. So, before we move on to the talk about your teammate Airsurfer's 1v1 set, I'm a little curious. I want to talk a little bit more just about the way that you two come together as a 2v2 pair. Razzer, you and Colton were viewed as a locked duo for a long time. You kind of set the tone for how 2v2 was, and then you've played with some other people, obviously, but you two coming together, it's two great Clash Royale minds, obviously. What's it been like, though, building together as teammates? What's the process been? How did you guys approach it? And what have been some of the positives and some of the challenges you've had trying to come together as a 2v2 duo?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I feel like me and Dip get along really well. Like we have similar personalities, so it's pretty easy to just like work together. I feel like we both get along really well. We both like to talk a lot, so it's just kind of easy to get along that way. And I mean, usually in 2v2, I'm a little more experienced than Dip, so like I do a little more shot calling, but like he still has an opinion and helps out. So it's a nice balance, basically, I would say, between us.
George, any additional insight into the two of you coming together as a 2v2 team?
I would say it's nice playing with Razzer because obviously he's the winningest 2v2 player ever. So
Yeah.
I got it fairly easy. All I have to do is just not mess up, and that's pretty much all. That's my goal every game is just to not mess up, and just listening to like what Razzer like says to do, we usually win.
That's not too bad. Yeah, 53 game wins in 2v2, I believe is the count. Let me just go ahead and confirm that. And I believe I have my records over here. Career stats, not counting playoffs. Let me go ahead and sort this sheet. Not counting playoffs, 53 career wins, 61% win rate, lifetime in 2v2. So, yeah, nothing to shake your head at. Not to mention, by the way, and I talked about this a bit before the season started, 4 King of the Hill sweeps. So, you know, one thing that your coach Adam tweeted was that he believes, Razzer, that you're one of the most underrated players in the game. I've been saying that since we came into this season. So it also, you know, before we're about to jump into the 1v1 stuff, do you feel like this season people are finally starting to catch on? Maybe some vindication for the level of play you've been bringing now in your 4th season in CRL?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I do get a lot of support. I just don't really have much of an ego. I'm a pretty modest person, so I just don't really view myself as a good player. I just play the game that I enjoy, basically. I never thought about like, oh, I just have to be the best or I have to be better than you. I always just thought I like playing the game. I'll just play it, and if people think I'm good, I'm good.
That's
always how I viewed it.
That's not too bad. And just to add in a little bit, talking about some Razzer stats here, because everyone knows how much I like my numbers. You were also now tied for second at most career sets won in CRL at 23, just behind Canario at 24. So not too bad there as well. Razzer, RF, and Morton all tied at 23 total sets won. So that's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and I'll chat. Go ahead and get your questions ready for after the next game. We're gonna go ahead and jump on to game number 1 of the 1v1. So you move in, and one thing that I think is really great to talk about is the level that Airsurfer has been playing at this season. Obviously, an amazing head-to-head player. Obviously, one of the best. You know, there's a lot of talk about his nerves and stuff like that, but it seems like this season he's really, really on form. And I'm curious about sort of your guys' thoughts on his performance. Obviously, it's been great, but do you think there's anything different about this season compared to last season's with his comfort level, with his play level, whatever it might be?
I think like 100%. I think he just when I first like became his teammate, I was also a little. I was like, oh, like I don't know, I was nervous or I was able to hold up under pressure. But the more he actually plays in like so many semi-pro leagues in like the off season, and he just kept on just working on just playing in tournaments, playing in as many things as he could, and like all like the Revo tournaments and just all of that. He just played in everything he could, played the game so much, and just the more and more he played, he's just getting better and better with handling pressure. And every single game he plays under pressure, he plays perfectly at this point now, in my opinion. He's like a whole different player this season. In my eyes, he's like at the highest level in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take. Go ahead, Raz.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say on top of that, because, like, I would say last season in CRL, he did get a little nervous, but I feel like a big thing it was last season is he was never sure what he should play. And me and Dip really like analytical side and choosing decks. So, like, we've been just working together, helping him decide what decks, because he plays every deck almost perfectly. It's just he has trouble choosing which one to play. And I feel like that's what's different this season is me and Dip really like choosing decks in the mind game of choosing decks. So we worked together on what he should play, and then he's just more comfortable.
So, speaking of choosing
What I
decks,
see there.
tell me about this one, Mortar GY. Like we saw, I think we'll watch the game. I think the Mortar came out before the Graveyard. What in the world, guys? What are we looking at?
So we played on Sunday. I think on Friday we were just doing our regular 1v1 practice. I think was it you, Raz?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I saw it. I saw Airsurfer playing it in a practice, and then I didn't really think anything of it. But then I was sometimes during practice, like I can't think of a deck, so I just scrolled down on ladder, and I saw someone running it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll try it. And I won like 6 games in a row, and I'm like, hey Jack, do you like this deck? And he's like, yeah, I think it's really good. And we're like, okay, you should play it then.
Yeah, Jack, he used it in practice. Like he said, like on Saturday, like we figured this deck out literally the day before he played on Saturday. He's like, oh yeah, I practiced. He was like, I'm like 15-0 with it or something. Like it was just ridiculous. He's like, oh, I literally haven't lost a game with it yet. And we're like, he was like, oh, but do you think I should use it because we picked a different deck? We're like, all right, so you haven't lost with it. Is what you're saying. He's like, yeah. We're like, all right, so you're using it.
So, Cool Quartz in the chat saying, I think if RF had Poison instead of Fireball would be totally different. Do you guys agree? I mean, obviously Poison's certainly a much better counter to Graveyard than Fireball.
Yeah.
It would be a little different. I don't know if it would be totally different. The instant spell is kind of nice on like, so if he has like Cannon Cart and Archers at the bridge, he can get a lot of value with Fireball, but I think Poison would have made it a little harder, but it's hard to say in hindsight.
I think Poison would have been worse in my eyes because if he had to poison graveyards, he would have never been able to build a good push.
Well, let's go ahead and actually take a look at this one. So starting hand, Mortar, Delivery, Arrows, and Graveyard. Lapo does not have the Golem in his starting hand, so no worries here. And just opens with Mortar at the bridge, not knowing what he's up against. I mean, is it just because he has Delivery in hand and knows he can defend against pretty much anything that comes out down the lane?
Yeah, I think Mortar's like usually in every Mortar deck, Mortar's always just a fine starting play. It's just it's just fine.
Yeah. So yeah, because like also if you look at Lapo's defense there, he spent 8 elixir killing the 4 elixir mortar. So that's why it's fine to just open up with it. Usually don't want to support it too much. When you open it like that, you just want to have them spend a lot and then worry about defending it.
So you see there, yeah, there's the 8 elixir, the baby dragon, and of course the goblin cage to pick it up, and then Airsurfer spends 5 on the cannon cart to play defense the opposite direction. So does have the downed cannon cart pretty even, and Lapo just goes ahead and cycles the skeletons, and now they're basically even, and it's split archers for Airsurfer in the back. So, you know, talk a bit about the concept behind this deck, right? You know, you understand cannon cart and graveyard together, kind of not dissimilar to how Musketeer and Graveyard might work together, but Cannon Cart may be a bit more tanky on the front end. How does this all synergize with the Mortar?
Sure. I've actually thought about this a lot because I was thinking the same thing. Because my dad plays a little bit of Clash Royale and likes to watch. And he's like, how does that deck work? And like, it looks very strange, but if you think about it, all of the cards in the deck are just kind of annoying. So Mortar just forces out a lot of elixir there. Cannon Cart's pretty hard to kill as well. And Archers and Bats are just good support for the Mortar because they're cheap and can like defend very, very well. So I think it's just all the cards coming together are just hard to deal with and just can defend a lot of different things. So it just kind of works.
So here's the first Graveyard push coming out of Airsurfer. And I think the cannon cart just barely gets into tanking range. Do you think that do you think Lapo had any idea what he was facing, and that's what happened here? Was he totally caught off guard by the Graveyard?
I'm not sure.
I think he's pretty clueless, to be honest. Like I wouldn't be expecting. I would, if I was Lapo, I would probably be expecting Hogs, to be honest, because I feel like Hogs could, like there was a pretty similar Hogs deck in the past like this mortar deck, but it would kind of be like hogs for graveyard. So I think he could have been expecting hogs, and then he just throws it a graveyard.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking at all these different pieces. You're absolutely brilliant. And then of course, the delivery. The delivery's already been nerfed a little bit, and that fireball does a good job of kind of stopping that one right at the bridge. Tell me about these bats here. We were really curious about these bats at this one. Did he play? Was he getting these queued up? Like, I guess the big question is, what's the idea behind the bats? Because it seems like they're kind of just giving free snowball value.
I think he was probably trying to hoping that the cannon cart would live. He probably just like pre-dropped him and then the graveyard. But it's also it's just an extra bit of, even if he didn't, it still was kind of a little bit of just annoying pressure because he still just snowball him because the graveyard was tanking for him. So it's just a little, like Razzer said, it's just an annoying card that he had to defend once again.
So yeah, I think he realized he didn't have poison, so he can't just poison the graveyards, and so he usually has to snowball the graveyards on defense. So if you bats at the bridge at that time, it can tank for the graveyard, but it can also like force out a snowball. If he snowballs high, he can't snowball the graveyard, so he has to wait for them to get close to tower and then snowball.
Oh, that's
so it
interesting.
kind of just adds a buffer, basically.
Yeah, let's actually go back to that because that's actually a really interesting point here. So here's
otherwise, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah, because here's the push. The fireball kills all that right there. But yeah, it gives a little bit extra time. You see a couple skeletons get in. Do you think that snowball timing was that different? Was it a little earlier than you would normally play it on a graveyard in that situation, though?
Maybe, but it's just like if it's just a completely naked graveyard, like anything can defend it. So like he could technically probably just skeletons, and the skeletons would clean up the whole graveyard, and it was just trying to force him to spend more elixir, so he couldn't just like save up and go in the back, basically. So it was just trying to create pressure to make Lapo spend more elixir.
And it's pretty clear to Airsurfer early on when he sees the Night Witch, the flying machine, the baby dragon, that he's up against Golem like 95% chance.
Yeah, we were like 100% sure it was Golem.
Well, he used this deck last week, I'm pretty sure, right?
Lapo used it 2 weeks ago, I believe.
2 weeks, okay.
And so here comes the Golem out to the outside. That placement partially to pick up the mortar and then partially to make it harder to pull with the second mortar, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of just distract it, and he didn't want to put it too close to like the goblin cage or like worry about it getting like pulled away or something like that. It's just a nice placement.
Sure. And here, so you see Lapos trying to build up some pushes, but good spreading that. Like, we go back and take a look at how Airsurfer spreads this out. The cannon cart on the left-hand side, mortar goes to the inside. The archers are going to come down low, far away from the bats. And there's no way to get a spell on everything, right? Archers low, bats come in high on the flying machine. Tell me a bit, what do you guys think about this matchup overall? I mean, it seems like Airsurfer kind of has Lapo's number in this one.
Yeah, honestly, it seemed just super solid. Having just Arrow's delivery literally just countered everything. Like, and the surprise factor was very nice, with probably like a bit of extra early damage because of it.
And now here we are getting into triple, a pretty healthy Golem. Bats nicely again played way on the outside, so the flying machine gets ripped.
Yeah, those 4 bats, that was such a nice play from him, to be honest. Like, that was my favorite play of the game from Jack, were those 4 bats to keep everything. He didn't pull, like, the baby dragon or anything, and it just completely that just killed the flying machine, which was a big, like, deal at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that flying machine could have easily helped take out the cannon cart fast, or the mortar faster, and got on tower. And then again, we see the power of delivery. Is delivery too strong, guys, or is it in a good spot?
I think it's in a good spot. It doesn't just go in every single deck now. It can't just completely stop a deck. It just specifically stops this one because none of the cards are too tanky, and with the Golem, it's just a little bit harder to like. You can't get as much stuff behind it, so the delivery kills the few cards you can get behind it.
And that's where that's GG at that point, where the first arrows gets down. And now I can just hold on, play some defense, not going to break through. And the GY, I think the GY actually ends up finishing this, or does he have to go to arrows one more time? No, the graveyard gets...
the arrows.
Yeah, the arrows at the end. GG, well played. And now you guys are up 3-0. Wow. I mean, at this point, we're sitting there going, looks like Misfits is gonna clinch first. And so let me go ahead and queue up the next deck really quick, so we can take a look at that one. I'm very curious as to, so you go completely outside of the meta, right? Someone somewhere has played this, but obviously the Graveyard Mortar, certainly not anywhere near the meta at this moment. So you go from something completely surprising, completely outside of the meta, to something that really no one's seen, or to something that everyone's seen. You go to a complete central meta deck in game number 2. What was the thought behind picking this sort of throwback version of Splash Yard for Airsurfer in game 2?
Yeah, so I talked to Jax between the games, and we had a different deck queued up. I'm not going to say what it was because I don't want to spoil it if he wants to run it in the future. But we just weren't sure if Lapo repeated or like if he somehow knew what Jack was going to play. So we decided to switch to something else, and we thought of just good old Splash Yard because it's pretty solid against everything. And so we're like, and Jack was really confident with it. So I basically told him to run it, or say, if you want to run it. And yeah, it was a good matchup.
Go ahead.
Yes, well, we had this already for King of the Hill. It was just, we just thought about everything that Lapo used, and Jack has been practicing with deck. We just felt like this deck was going to get used versus Lapo regardless, but we felt like it was just a better time to just move it up to right then. Because it was honestly just really solid against all of his decks.
Yeah, I mean, and the big one being the return of the Tombstone, which my guess is that you guys went with this version of it primarily because Prince is so popular.
Yeah, I mean, it has to do with Prince, but it also has to do with Earthquake being less popular because Earthquake can completely counter a Tombstone. So Tombstone's better now that Earthquake is kind of out of the meta as well.
So very interesting. You all remember a time when Ice Wiz NATO Tombstone was pretty much everywhere, and now at least it's back, but not back in a bad way. So let's go ahead and jump into the fourth and final game. Lapo running Giant Miner Magic Archer with Prince, and Airsurfer running a pretty traditional version of Splash Yard. And you guys like this matchup as well.
Oh yeah, this is probably the best matchup we could have asked for.
And did you expect that Lapo was going to be running something like this, or running this deck in particular?
We picked this deck knowing that it would be good if he possibly played this deck. We weren't specifically sniping it, but it was just a good deck that was good against a couple of his decks, and this was one of the decks that we knew that it would be good against.
Yeah, because Samuel Bassotto on the team is probably the best in the world at the deck. So every team has kind of their own meta. And so, if one person's really, really good with the deck, everyone else is probably going to be just as good because they also practice against it and they can get taught from their teammate. So it was definitely a possibility of them playing it.
So,
go
ahead.
Razzer was actually a good point. I've said that before. I feel like almost every single team, if you look at what every team has been using, every single team kind of has a different meta. It seems a different play style when it comes to decks, and I think it was really interesting to see that through the season.
So a good question from the chat. I have the FLG, the fake Lapo gang, is a big number of my viewers. I think there's 10 different fake LaPoKaTis in my viewership here on Trovo. And Deep Fake LaPoKaTi, which is a great version of the fake Lapo gang, asks, why does Airsurfer always spam the Lunar Pig emote?
It's just his emote.
It's his signature emote. He always just spams it at the start of the game. I don't know. It's just a ritual, basically. All pro athletes have some kind of ritual before a game, and that's his.
That's his throw the powder into the air at the score table.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or the Michael Phelps arm thing.
The arm thing. There you go. So I brought that one back a little bit because you did see a little bit of protection against the to protect the Magic Archer. How important for Lapo was keeping the Magic Archer alive in this matchup?
It's everything, I think, because otherwise it can't kill a baby dragon. I think.
Not to talk down to Lapo, but I would say one of the big things about this matchup just not even being close was we all thought that he was playing pretty bad Magic Archers the whole game, to be honest. That was that was the main thing. None of his Magic Archers really did anything. They all just immediately got spelled off and just immediately killed, and they just weren't that good.
So here's a question. I guess it's just because it wasn't quite in cycle yet, although it's the whole card. Why is Airsurfer playing a defensive graveyard here instead of a tombstone? Is that to prevent the Magic Archer from taking the tombstone off the board?
It's because you can spell the tombstone really easy. Also, you'd have to cycle 2 cards, so you'd have to waste a bar barrel and then tombstone, and then Lapo could have like logged or zapped the tombstone, so it wouldn't even been. So it'd be the same amount of elixir because like a graveyard and versus a bar barrel tombstone, but the graveyard's just 100% safer. Like the Magic Archer could have sniped the tombstone or something like that. So it's just a safer play.
Lapo could also spam a little bit more if he doesn't have a building in hand. So it was just a way safer play.
So tombstone down kind of early in this case against the giant, and so me being, a much lower tier player than Airsurfer, I'm thinking you save the tombstone like cycle wise for the prince as much as possible. Was this tombstone here just to clog up the lane a little bit with the skeletons? Once he saw the giant come down because he expected the prince to come down afterwards.
Yeah. I think also he just didn't want to cycle his Ice Wiz and the Ice Wiz to get really far ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. He didn't want to play. Yeah, he didn't want to play any troops so that because they would get high. And also, if he gets the tombstone done early and like he gets to spell it, then but Jack's also going to be able to get back to it if he absolutely needs it.
And this baby dragon is nice. That's a really clean baby dragon there. Magic Archer comes down for the tombstone, and is very very quickly gets the baby dragon down and picks up the aggro. So.
Yeah, he was Jag was he was fully expecting it to happen, and just did not want it to walk onto the tombstone because then that's where it gets a bit annoying.
What are the big keys but people who are watching don't know Airsurfer Jack, that's who we're talking about when they say Jack. When they say George, they mean Dip. All these guys actually do have names, in case you guys were curious. The Razzer's mother does not call him Razzer, as far as I'm aware.
I mean, yeah, I'm the one who usually doesn't get called by my first name out of everyone in the group.
That's
Nobody
funny.
really called me by my first name, but yeah.
Yeah, I call
Usually
Wings.
we're on a first name basis.
I call Wings Jimmy most of the time.
Sure.
No one calls him Jimmy besides like me and like 2 other people. And then if anybody ever calls me Diputs, or Dip, whatever, I just say George. And then no one calls Jack Airsurfer. Not a single person that I know. Like even like in our friend group of other teams and stuff, everyone calls him Jack. It's just how it is.
So I want you to walk me through how this turns this way, right? Because at the moment, Lapo is up on Elixir, right? He has 5 on the board to the 3 from Airsurfer. He's behind by 1. The end of the sequence turns out with Airsurfer with a huge Jack with a huge Elixir advantage. Talk me through how that plays out.
The main thing was getting that Magic Archer high because it was just not able to get any value. The Baby Dragon lived, the Ice Wizard's getting chipped, the Skeletons stopped the Prince from charging, and then he's just able to get all these cards low, and he kept his troops alive, which was the big thing.
And here we are. Take a look at this. Right before this graveyard comes down, you see Airsurfer is at 8. Airsurfer is at 9, has a little bit on the board, and there you go. Lapo behind by about 3.5 Elixir, so a huge swing by the good defense, and a great Bar Barrel graveyard to recognize that he was up at the moment.
He saved his troops, was able to get really positive Elixir trades because, it's definitely a good matchup. It's just hard for Lapo to kill anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the main thing is just Baby Dragon is because the only way to hit Baby Dragon is either Bats or Magic Archer. Magic Archer just gets poisoned and Bats just get NATO'd back or even just splashed by the Baby Dragon. So it's just so hard to... And there's just so much splash damage, like the Prince just dies from splash damage alone.
Yeah, because the Dark Prince charges into the Giant, which also hits the Prince, and then the Ice Wiz Baby Dragon splash. Everything, it just... Yeah, this is just another one of those matchups where we got really good matchups this day. We did a good job with picking decks.
Yeah, were you surprised by... it seems like you guys kind of had Lapo's number in the deck picking here. Were you surprised at all by kind of the predictability here? I mean, Andrew and I tell the story often, George, of being in China with you and having you call everyone's decks beforehand. It seems like in a game of this magnitude that maybe Space Station would have been a little bit harder to read.
Yeah, I was really surprised, to be honest. I was really expecting them to like you said, just be less predictable. Because Lapo, he's such a good player. He could literally use anything. So in a game like this, I expected him to use anything, not what we expected. But honestly, them going what they're comfortable with is not a bad strategy because even like we considered just going fully comfort decks because sometimes going obvious is so obvious it's not obvious.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all I was gonna add. It's like a double thing. Like it's in hindsight, yeah, it could be not as good, but like we could be expecting them to just run off the wall things, and you could just run your comfort, and if you're that good at it, you can win anything.
So here we go, Graveyard down, and again, also just from his perspective, the defense on the Graveyard, there's no real excellent card in his hand to defend Graveyard. Bats can get poisoned off easily, Magic Archer's not fast enough. That's a GG, well played. And a big congrats to you guys, securing first place and moving on. The first round bye, obviously, is absolutely huge for you guys. You know, obviously you guys have Team Queso up next in a match that has no implications for either of you, right? You guys can't knock out Queso. Queso winning can't knock out anybody. I hate to call it like a troll game, and someone even asked in chat about how bad will you guys troll in that final matchup. My guess is that you guys don't expose any decks against Queso, that you guys just play only things you've already played, maybe even like really basic meta stuff. Am I getting the right read on that as you guys would go into the final week?
I mean, we're taking the game seriously. It's not like we're just gonna play, I don't know, like random like clone RG or something just that doesn't make any sense. Like we're gonna take it seriously. We probably or may not use decks that we're gonna use in the future, but like yeah, we're not gonna throw the game, but
Yeah,
we're gonna
throw. We still want to win if we can, but we're also not gonna do anything to hurt us in the future.
Yeah.
Sure.
I also want to extend my 2v2 wins lead. So
Sure, I can understand that. Cool Quartz asks, if Skeleton Dragons weren't banned, would Airsurfer have used Skeleton Dragons in that matchup?
Wait, was it in one of those decks?
No, it wasn't because
Yeah,
Skeleton
it was
Dragons are banned.
no.
No, but
He's saying in the Splash Yard deck instead of Baby Dragon.
Ah, yes.
I think no, because I think it's just too easily like spellable, and the tankiness of the Baby Dragon is really nice for Graveyard, so they can't just be like spelled away really fast. Because like Lapo, like if you just like bat zap, I mean the Skelly Dragons kind of die, so it's nice to have the little more tank of the Baby Dragon.
Lady Royale asks, does Graveyard need a nerf? It's everywhere, and she thinks it's the most boring archetype to watch, especially Graveyard versus Graveyard. I don't necessarily agree with that in terms of the most boring one to watch, but your thoughts? Do you think Graveyard is in a good spot right now, or is it too powerful, or is it too powerful because of the support cards?
Yeah, I never, usually win, for most of the time. It's not all the time, but most of the time, it's usually not the win condition that's the problem. It's usually just the support cards that are so strong that complement the win condition so well.
And then one last question, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Counterfeit LaPoKaTi, which that's a new one, and I'm really excited about. Counterfeit LaPoKaTi asks, what team would you guys say is the most difficult team to game plan for?
I would probably hope just Tribe, since they're they're the other top dog at the moment. So they're the team that I would be most scared, or even
I would even say Queso, to be honest, because Ruben can play anything. Because Ruben is so hard to prepare for because he plays so many decks and he plays them so well. Like it's just so hard to decide what are you gonna run versus Ruben.
Well, I think it has been the kind of downfall of Queso this split is their game planning from this season compared to past seasons is just completely different. I feel like they're running really obvious decks a lot, and their 2v2 is just not the same. I don't know what. Yeah, it's just interesting because they're acting like a different team. Their big thing. They used to be so good because of their extensive planning and stuff. So yeah, they're different in that aspect. And if they change that, they have the talent to be. Their talent should not be last place, pretty much.
And final question for you. You have the first round bye. Of the teams that are currently in contention, who do you want to see in that second round? right? I mean, we don't know exactly who's going to go where, but which team would you most like to face, and which team would you least like to face in that second round in the semifinals of our playoffs?
Well, for our side, we're either playing SK or Pain, winner of that, and then they are going to play. It could be if Cream beats Tribe and Dig loses to Liquid, then we could play Tribe in the semifinals. We probably would play Tribe in the semifinals. So we play the winner of second place in the other group and third place in our group, which is either Pain or SK. And then Group A is just anything's on the table.
Sure.
I would say Tribe is probably the scariest to play against, just because they're doing so well right now. Who we most likely face or like to face, I don't really think we have one, because I think every team is just so good this season. Like, it just like SK, people are like not sure about SK, but SK is so amazing. Like, they're just star-studded. Like, they're having some kind of issue, but like I don't want to play against them, to be honest. Like, Pain, Surge TS did really good. Their 2v2 looks insane. Like,
yeah, I think every single team this season, like I Group B is just ridiculously hard, to be honest. Group B, I think any team could have literally gotten first place. Like every team in this group is just so like Pain was one game off in both matches from literally being in first place right now.
Yeah.
Have 100% clinching first. So it's like every single team is just so good. Like Pain, everyone thought Pain was like by far the weakest. But I think if you put them in Group A or something, I think they'd probably be second in my eyes in Group A.
Well, I really appreciate the time, guys. Hopefully we get to do more of these as you guys continue moving forward. If you guys haven't yet, for those of you guys watching on YouTube and watching the live stream of this on Trovo, you can follow George and Razzer on Twitter at GeorgeCR_ for Trainer Diputs and at RazzerCR, RazzerCR for Razzer. And I'll, of course, put both of those links in the description below for those of you guys watching on YouTube. And again, thanks, guys. Really happy having you both here, and good luck as you guys move into playoffs.
Thanks Rich.
I always like to come on the channel.
For sure. Yeah,
this is fun.
Appreciate your insight. We'll have to have you guys back on fairly soon. Those of you guys watching this video replay on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe right up here somewhere. The next video will appear right around where my Twitter handle is on the screen right now. And I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you very soon with more CRL insights right here. Take it easy.